Very honored and privileged to have an opportunity to present Republic of Korea's official development assistance program for peace consolidation and sustainable development in the Mekong region. Actually, this paper is partly cited from the feasibility study and also monitoring and evaluation report that I had participated in the KOICA, Korea International Cooperation Agency's mine action program in the Mekong region. This is the content of my presentation. Firstly, I briefly introduce the background of this mine action program. Secondly, I briefly touch on the current status of mine and unexplosive ordnance issues in the Mekong region. Thirdly, the Korea's future peace community program that the Ambassador Jurong already mentioned. And finally, what is the opportunity and the challenges of this program? And finally, I conclude my presentation. The cooperation framework of the Mekong and Korea was officially started in 2011. A lot of quantitative statistics show the Korea has become the major partner of the Mekong countries in trade and socio-cultural exchange. For example, trade grew by 2.5 times, and the number of mutual visits increased by 3.3 times as of 2020. As you see the diagram under Mekong-Korea Summit, under the Mekong-Korea Summit, the foreign ministers meeting and policy dialogue and business council are organized and followed by a senior officials meeting. The decision made by the cooperation framework can be put into action with financial support of Mekong-Korea Cooperation Fund. The significant outcome of this cooperation framework joint declaration of the first summit in 2019 and the plan of action in 2020. Taken mine action into account, the joint declaration highlighted the importance of Korea-Mekong Future Peace Community Program and reaffirmed the program would contribute to clear explosive remnants of war, we could say ERW, victim assistance, and promote human rights as a whole. Then some reflective questions may arise the following. Firstly, on what background was Korea's Future Peace Community Program started? And how has the Korea Future Peace Community Program been implemented? Then finally, what outcomes has the Korea's program achieved? Is it positive or negative? Now, let me tell you the current status of the mine and UXO issues in the Mekong region. During the Vietnam War, the U.S. forces fortified the demilitarized zone to prevent the North Vietnam forces from entering the South, such as laying M16A1 anti-personnel land mine and M18A1, the Claymore mine, etc. As you see the map in right side, the Northern Vietnam Armed Forces alternatively explored the so-called Ho Chi Minh Trail so that weapons, manpowers, and ammunition and other supplies might be sent through Lao PDR and Cambodia. Aware of the amount of weaponry that trail supplied to North Vietnam forces in the south, more than 30 U.S. Air Force jets struck targets along the villages and roads of Ho Chi Minh Trail in Lao PDR and southeast part of Cambodia. More specifically, U.S. Air Force dropped more than 7.5 million tons of bombs on 3 countries between 1965 and 1975, which amounts almost double as many as bombs dropped during the Second World War. So it remains the largest aerial bombardments in human history. The graph shows the current status of the mine or UXO contamination, the victims, etc. So recently, Lao government reported all of 18 provinces were contaminated by unexplosive ordnance, which used to be 15 provinces, but now the Lao government released all 18 provinces are contaminated by unexplosive ordnance. And mines have been found in Vietnam, and mines have been found.
발표문을 좀 옮기면서 넘기시면서 해주시기 바랍니다. 발표문이 뜨질 않습니다. 네.
그래요. 잠깐만요. 지금은 어떠십니까? 보이시나요?
표지만 보입니다. 지금 발표문을 좀 띄워주시기 바랍니다. 예.
계속 제가 옮기는데 그럼 이제까지 안 보였다는 얘기네요?
네, 계속 표지만 보이고 있습니다. 큰 화면에는요.
아, 그래요?
네.
이게 여기서는 움직이는데 이거 제가 어떻게 할 수가 없는 분이 그럼 그쪽에서 좀 컨트롤을 해주시겠습니까? 제가 공유를 중지하고 여기서는 넘어가는데 화면상으로는 이제까지 안 넘어갔던 것 같습니다.
발표 계속해 주시죠. 뭐. 예. 일단 발표 자료는 공유를 하겠습니다.
Go on with your slides.
발표 계속해 주세요.
네. So in Cambodia, when it comes to Cambodia, explosive remnant were mainly found in the southeastern region due to U.S. bombing, where northeastern part of the Cambodia, such as Battambang, Ban Thi Minh Jay, and Pailin provinces, etc., were contaminated by landmine, partly laid during the Civil War in 1970s. They resulted in 64,849 casualties from 1979 to 2019. Regarding the Rao PDR, more than 2 million tons of bombs were dropped, but up to 30% of cluster submunition were not detonated and remain unexplosive ordnance. Sometimes it dropped from the tree or found in farm area and in water as well, which led to 50,803 victims from 1964 to 2019. As you know, Myanmar has become destabilized since the Tatmadaw military ruled the country since February 2021. But even before, ongoing intrastate armed conflict between government forces and rebel groups caused unexplosive ordnance contamination. Though a level of contamination isn't confirmed, but at least 9 provinces will be allegedly hazardous area. The casualties are 4,981 from 2000 to 2019, recorded one of the highest numbers of casualties throughout the world. But needless to say, in Vietnam, most provinces are reportedly contaminated. More than 18.7% of the mainland has been contaminated, and 105,000 casualties were recorded. But fortunately, the number has been decreased The only one casualties were found in 2019. So let me explain the Korea's Future Peace Village Community Program. I'm not sure, it's because of technical problem, I couldn't show you the map of my presentation. But according to the US bombing map, actually coincide with the poverty map in 3 countries. Not only did the threat of landmine and unexploded ordnance prevent people in the Mekong region from developing contaminated land for farming or housing, but victims and their family also became marginalized and disadvantaged, exposing to poverty and discrimination. With this context in mind, Korea's new Southern policy, of which vision is Korea ASEAN community, share the future of people-centric community of peace and prosperity. There are 3 pillars. The first pillar is a community of people. The second is prosperity. And finally, the peace. So the third pillar is to establish a sub-stable region that is peaceful and secure. In addition, Korea has had successful experiences in rural development programs in Cambodia, Laos, PDR, Myanmar, and Vietnam. And importantly, Korea shares the common challenge of mine and unexploded ordnance, the UXO contamination. Let me explain the Korea's landmine and UXO contamination later. So in this regard, mine action program that combines peace and development has been implemented. The strategy of Future Peace Community Program is the rural community to be free from the threat of mines and UXOs. Victims and their families' right to be protected and transform contaminated land into the land of peace and prosperity in the sub-region of Mekong, which ultimately contribute to achieve sustainable development goals, including National Sustainable Development Goals 18, the free from threat of mine and UXO in Cambodia and Laos PDR. This program adopted diversified approaches. The first is it should take a holistic approach, humanitarian assistance to casualties and their families, inclusive development to released areas of rural community, and survey and clearance of landmines and UXOs and ERW. Secondly, it pursued capacity building and empowerment of the partner government, national mine action authorities, and mine operators in central and provincial level. Thirdly, it promoted mutual learning through sharing best practices among Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and Vietnam countries, and Korea through effective knowledge management. And fourthly, it fosters a result-based and evidence-based approach. And finally, it facilitated mutual inclusive partnership at a various level. As you know, the mine action program mainly includes 5 main factors: humanitarian demining and victim assistance, mine risk education, and stockpile destruction and international advocacy. In addition to this conventional mine action program, Korea accelerates outcomes of mine action by adding inclusive rural development. If you see the diagram of implementation system, is quite complicated, but its implementing system is quite aligned between donors and various partners. The Korea has implemented sub-regional and multilateral partnership with the partner governments and respective mine action operators. In addition, the UNDP, Cambodia, Laos PDR, and Vietnam, and UNICEF, Myanmar, as a project management and consulting partner, participated in the program in the framework of multi-buy arrangement. Furthermore, the Korean implementing partner who are specialized in victim assistance and rural development will be invited to the program as well. At present, in Vietnam, humanitarian demining has been conducted since 2014, and separate victim assistance and rural development program are planned accordingly. While Lao PDR had the integrated project of humanitarian demining and victim assistance, and it is expected that rural development program will be added in near future. The Cambodia will have the full-fledged project including 3 areas: humanitarian demining, victim assistance, and rural development. In Myanmar, explosive ordnance education and victim assistance project was planned, but it will be suspended until the current Myanmar conflict is resolved. When it comes to funding, budget and implementing partners of project in respective country, of which project amount, the budget amounts to the $778 million. Actually, $10 million is allocated to Cambodia for clearing for resort project from 2021 to 2025. Lao PDR has been funded $8.5 million, and additional $11 million will be committed to 2022 to 2025. The Korean government pledged $4.4 million to Myanmar program, and Vietnam has implemented the first phase of Korea-Vietnam Mine Action Project in 2016 to 2021. The amount is $20 million, and second phase project is planned. The budget is $25 million. The total amount of the multi-buy project reached to $78,990,000. In addition, the bilateral projects in areas of sustainable development and victim assistance amount to $32 million in Cambodia and Vietnam. In particular, the Vietnam, the Quang Binh provinces, they will establish sustainable income and implement a rural human resource quality project for the Peace Village. In Quang Tri province, the community rehabilitation center for people with a disability. So those who the victimized from the mine or UXO will have some rehabilitation services from this facility in probably 2024 or 5. So total project amount reaches $110 million next to 5 years. So what opportunity and challenges will have in this project? The opportunity is, as you know, both Korea and countries in the Mekong region share a history of tragedy from armed conflict, so-called proxy war in the Cold War era. Both violent conflict left the scars of war in the form of explosive ordnance. South Korea has approximately 112 square kilometer minefield that are assumed in bearing 380,000 to even 1 million landmines. Past a few decades, the rear air defense areas have been surveyed and cleared, but still 3,000 anti-personnel landmines are still unaccounted for. But compared to huge number of victims in the Mekong region, Korea has less victims at 608, but the UXO victims, assuming more than 5,000, the victims are not included in this data. This common ground of historical context will lay a solid foundation to ensure Korea's commitment to the project. When the President Moon delivered the keynote speech in 74th session of UN General Assembly in September 2019, he proposed that DMZ, Demilitarized Zone, a symbol of the last Cold War, should be turned into mine-free international peace zone. 2 months later, the Korean government hosted the first Mekong Korea summit in Busan and pledged future peace community program. So learn from this initiative in the Mekong region, Korea will be provided a major opportunity for institutionalization of the mine action program in Korea itself. In Mekong side, the leadership of greater Mekong states, those countries express a strong commitment to free from the threat of UXO and landmine. Each government has made consistent efforts to align policy, strategy, and work plan in mine action. Though a level of institutionalization is varied, legal framework, governance structure, and national mine action standard and so forth are in process of establishment. Survey, clearance, and land release are in steadfastly progress, even though it will be difficult to achieve the goal to complete clearance in 2025. Absolutely, the challenges still remain in this initiative. As the graph shows, the countries in the Mekong region are highly dependent on international contribution in mine action. $200 million in Laos PDR and $113 million in Cambodia and $67.7 million in Vietnam from 2015 to 2019. But national contribution is still low. Some donors, such as Finland, was advised to cease funding to Cambodia in its monitoring and evaluation report in 2015, and donor fatigue will affect volume of international contribution to mine action in the Mekong region. Then how come after withdrawal international contribution, how this program will be sustained? According to the Humanitarian Development Peace-Building Nexus, international community demands a greater empirical evidence of developmental impacts of mine action. When I observed the mine action in the Mekong region, mine action to sustainable rural development is still less aligned, somewhat pragmatized that evidence of impact was not fully ensured. Even donor side, the organization are distracted to supervise mine action program and development project respectively. As you see this slide, mine action program should be managed effectively from stage, from input, activity, output, and outcomes. To implement mine action effectively, quality management, quality control, and information management should be instituted in due course. Without these factors, mine action seems to be hardly successful. So of course, capacities vary country to country, and resources are allocated to improve capacity, but concern about the lack of efficient and effective quality management and control were generally found.
통역이 권 교수님께 마무리 요청해 주시기 바랍니다. 음성이 안 나갑니다.
Okay, the conclusion is Mekong-Korea cooperation has laid a solid and concrete foundation to support holistic mine
교수님
action
지금 시간이
plus
없어서
sustainable
발표를
and
끝내주실 수
inclusive rural
있을까요?
development in the Mekong region.
교수님 지금
Aligned with
시간이 다
new
되셨습니다.
Southern foreign policy, Korea has committed to long-term funding and technical assistance to future peace community projects. But it should be noted that greater Mekong states express willingness and efforts to achieve UXO and mine-free goals, enhancing institutionalization and implementation.
Time is up, so would you summarize just 1 minute, please? Sorry to interrupt you.